There they are. See you guys in the chat. Hope you guys are having a great night. Yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie to you. This is gonna be a tough one. I'm a mix of emotions today, man. I'll tell you that. I do feel like this is an important video. So obviously, like we've done before on our channel together, we have worked through a lot of serious things, and tonight is one of those things. I've got a lot I'm gonna get to today. I think that there's a lot of people who have a lot of questions about things that have happened before. And to be honest, I'm not doing a video to answer everyone's questions. I'm actually doing a video to heal. We've made that the point of this channel. And if it's not going to be productive, then I don't feel it's necessary to talk about. I'm not here to stir or cause drama. This channel has a tone, and the tone is to heal. So that is going to constantly be the messaging here, and that's what we want. Tonight's heavy just because, revisiting all this stuff as an adult, walking through therapy, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about things you didn't understand as a kid. And, for me, this is going to be it's a lot to unpack. I think the reason I'm doing it is because that's been another part of my life now, is sharing the things that I've learned from my childhood, from my life, and from the experiences that I've had now that people are starting to identify with, and that brings healing. So, with all that being said, how are you guys doing? I see you guys in the chat. You guys know how I am. It's hard. I can't really hide my feelings, so I'm definitely feeling a little bit heavy tonight. I forgot to turn on the lights. Hold on now. Hold on. That's how you get a cramp in your lat. That's how you cramp up. Ugh. I need to start drinking more water. Okay. Anyway, so with that being said, going to be getting into what's going on here. So one of the things that's been really hard to, I guess, figure out in my own life, and I guess do, is honestly go back. I don't know if you guys have done this in your life yet, or if you are in therapy, if you've walked this part out. But when you start to actually zoom back out to your early days, I can remember mostly just events. Again, I wrote about some of these things in the book, but I thought we'd get into a little bit more of it tonight. One of the key moments and things in life is, one of the exceptions that I've had to come to was that I did not have the parent that I wish that I had. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and rip on my mom the whole entire time. It doesn't mean that this whole video is about her. It's just that when I was a kid, I have a lot of flash memories of being alone, and she had to work and she had to provide for me and for her. But with that was a lot of loneliness. And so as a kid, I was alone a lot of the time. My grandparents, I would say, raised me. I was at their house most of the time that I can remember growing up. Their house was my safe place. I felt like a kid at their house. I didn't have worries or concerns. I had people who loved me and took care of me. And so that was the biggest deal for me ever. One of the hard realities, though, is that they're, forming that loneliness from an early point, I think did cause a lot of, issues going forward, because, when you don't feel like you have someone to lean on, your own parent, there's going to be a void. And I felt like I just never could lean on my own mom. And it was just me and her for a while. For the first 4 years, it was just us. And I had a deep attachment to her. And obviously, she was my whole world. She's all I had. And I had really, really deep separation anxiety from her. Anytime she was gone, I would flip. You know what I mean? Like, I was that kid that was like calling on the phone, having a really, really hard time if she was not there. She tried to raise me in the LDS church, but I don't really remember going to church. as a kid. We moved around a lot. We were always on the move. It felt like I can't even tell you how many places we lived in. I grew up in Texas, which shout out to Texas. I love Texas, but I grew up there and we just moved constantly. It just never felt like we had our own life and things were always moving and changing. I remember that my mom, wanted to give me siblings and she wanted to have a family and she wanted to have that. And I know that was really my main goal in life is that I wanted to have a big Texas sized family. I wanted a lot of siblings and I wanted to feel, I don't know, just be in a big group. I wanted people around me. And so when I was 4 years old, she got remarried. And for me, that was really hard for me. Um, I, I'm going to answer this question. No, I don't even, I've seen Annie 3 times in my entire life. So I'm just going to leave that out there. But things took a really hard turn for me personally, and I'm not ready to get into that with everybody yet. That's something that I've been working through, but there was a lot of hardship for a long time, and that was the loneliest I've ever been. Um, my mom was working when I was a kid, and she was trying. And then once she got remarried, I remember the biggest joy of all of it was Tylee. And for me to have a sibling was a big deal. I was a lonely kid and we moved into this really big house and I mean, I was just scared from like age, I don't know, 4 to 9. It's terrified all the time. That's all I remember from that time in my life. And I remember feeling alone. I felt like my mom abandoned me and I was having to go through a lot of things with my stepdad at that time. And it was horrible. It was a horrible time in my life and it really shaped me as a person. I don't know if it was, you want to call it for the better or for the worse, but it was hard. The bright spot to me was Tylee. She was everything I ever wanted. When she was born, I was attached to her. I was the freaking Jim Carrey. Like I was the Chris Farley. I would literally throw myself into a door to make her laugh. She would, gosh, man, she would wait at the end of the driveway when I get home from school, and she would just be standing there every time, jumping up and down. And I waited for that moment every day, you know. And I wish I had more pictures of that time. My mom was not very sentimental, and so we did not have almost any pictures at all, period. I think that so many times that we've moved, so much happened in my life that I just felt like I can't even think of one I don't have anything. I have no pictures. The pictures I have of my entire life are gone. What I have is what I have on my phone, and it's really really hard because our family does not have a lot of family pictures. My mom did not do that. She does not take pictures really, and it's very very heartbreaking because I don't get to look back on a lot of those things. Excuse me. Um, but growing up, once I had Tylee in my life, was a lot different. It changed everything for me, and she became a huge anchor to me because I was going through a lot, and um, all I could ever do and want to do is get away from my house. That was really my all I wanted to do was to go to my grandparents. They had the safe house. My best friend, he lived there in San Antonio, and I just that's all I wanted to do is be at their house and be with him and be a kid. And I just wanted me and my sister to leave. And I'm not gonna lie, they came and got me every weekend. They drove 2 hours to come get me, and it meant the world to me because it was like they were saving me on a every weekend. Like I just begged them. I would sit in their car. They'd be leaving from a visit, and I'd just sit in there and just beg them to take me home with them because I didn't want to be in my house because my house just felt like hell, and it was. And I really just that whole time just really associates with the feeling at this point. I don't really have a ton of memories from being there. I just remember it's like dark memories of everything. Um, but after that, we finally moved out, got away from that situation, and I felt like for me as a person, I had to hold up my mom. There's a lot of misunderstandings about where Alex was at this time. Alex was very, I don't know, in and out person. I really didn't know Alex. He was like this foreign person to me. Um, I don't remember him being around a lot. And, you know, my family was all spread out at that point. We didn't all live together. We didn't all live in the same state. And so really just me, it was my mom, my grandparents, and Tylee. And that's just really how it was. And Alex wasn't around really. Um, just kind of popped in and out. And yeah, I don't know. He just wasn't around. And my other family members were living their life. You know, everybody was having started having their kids and like started living their life as families. And so we would go visit them and see them. But I remember that time I wrote about this in the book. When I was living in San Antonio, I was riding my friend's bike down the street and I got hit by a car. And that was obviously like a life changing experience for me because I remember having a moment of complete wonder if I'm going to die. And I remember that feeling of that panic and that worry and that doubt. And I remember everybody gathering around. And I remember just having the sweetest peace. And I remember hearing out of all the voices and all the stuff, I heard a lady praying. And it was like the only thing I could hear. And those moments were hard because that happened to me when my mom was at work and I was alone. Tylee was sleeping. She was up at my grandparents' house and they came and they took care of me. And it wasn't anybody's fault. I mean, if anything, it was my fault. I rode my friend's bike that had zero brakes on it. It was a BMX bike. It didn't have brakes and turned the corner and got popped by a car. And I think that situation changed me. Um, but it was the first, I guess, resilience test for me. I was in a wheelchair for like 2 months after that. I couldn't walk. I had hit my knees on the so I actually would have went through the windshield. I don't know how this is all God, but like I was riding my bike and I turned a corner around a blind corner for me and a car and I got hit head on. So my knees hit with the front of the bike. I turned my body somehow at the last second. I'm still all scarred up on my shoulder, but I would have had my head go right through. And the hardest part about that story is there was two little girls in the back of this man. This dad was driving his car, and I just came out of nowhere because I couldn't stop my bike, and it was an accident on both sides. And all he was doing was just driving. I'm the one that cut into the street, but I think I was 8 or 9 years old, and that was a life changing experience for me. Um, but I remember being there and having those experiences, and I remember like the fear of Tylee, and I remember almost feeling like I disappointed her. I was scared to let her see me that way. And there was just like I just always had that protection over her. Um, yeah, it's just hard. But yeah, that was a life-changing moment for me. But during that time, I didn't I think my mom was going through a lot. I'm not really sure where she was at in her mental state, but we went through a lot of things as a family, and I can tell you, like, we did not I don't know how we made it through sometimes. It was just that hard. It just felt like life had no meaning, no purpose. It would just felt like it was constantly a test. It felt like it always had to be harder than it had to be, and it shaped me as a person. It shaped me to who I am today, and I think I had to be I was probably the most scared kid you've ever met. Like, I was not brave, and, um, I felt like all I felt and knew was fear, and I think that I'll get into this in a little bit, but I felt like that was part of the later on in like life was a lot of where I started to want to end it all because I just felt like I couldn't handle life. I felt like I wasn't strong enough to be here dealing with all this stuff, and I felt like there's nothing in me that was strong, and I felt like there was not enough for me to give. During this time, I don't really remember what my mom was doing. She was working. Um, we were living at my grandparents' house, and then we moved back to Austin, and that was a hard time too because when we moved back from their house back to closer to where she worked, um, that loneliness was worse because I was by myself. I was about in 4th grade, and I was just really by myself in that house, and I think that that chapter of loneliness was a long stretch for me. I'm not saying I didn't have people who loved me or supported me at all, right? But I was alone. I was alone, and I always felt alone, and I never felt like I could rely on my mom. The hard part that I've had to come to in um, realization of my life was that I was really a support system for my mom, and I was put in a position to be a partner in a sense of like I was being told the hard stuff at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old. I'm hearing stuff that I should never hear about. We're talking about things that I would never tell my daughter or my daughters, my kids, um, and put a burden of my weight and my pains in life on them. The problem was is that she talked to me like we were friends and as if I was, her support system. And she looked to me as a source of life. And the problem was I couldn't be that for her. But yet I also craved to please her. I craved to give her what she was needing subconsciously. Like I wanted to be everything for everybody. And I think a big part of this was kind of where I turned to loving superheroes, loving the idea of being strong. And I think that's where a lot of people subconsciously love this idea of superheroes and all this stuff that we watch now is like people being able to face the hard things. And I think that I just wanted to be strong. I wanted to feel strong and I wanted to feel capable. And I just didn't. I couldn't be that. And so I always felt like a failure and I felt like I could never be enough. And so those were the insecurities that I carried. You know what I mean? And the problem that I was having is I felt like I couldn't protect Tylee because she was having to go see her dad and I couldn't stop that. And my mom, I don't know what was going on with her, but I felt like I had to be there for her. And then I was supposed to be a kid at the same time. And I'm this terrified kid who has everything on his shoulders. And that's just how I felt. I don't know if that was the truth, but that's how I felt. And I felt like I could never be strong enough for anybody. And I felt like everything was my fault. And I could never get rid of that guilt. I always felt like I made everything worse. Just a lot of really deep down issues. And I feel like these were created by not having a circumstance to grow correctly. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. I mean, no one's perfect, but as parents, I think our responsibility is to try to create that, and I have to be better at that. I'm not a perfect parent by any means, but I think that the number one thing I would not want to do is put my burden and my emotional burden um, on my kids. It's not fair in any way, shape, or form. But that's what shaped me going into my teen years. There's a lot of loneliness. Like I said, I had to meet new friends all the time. I had to adjust to a new school every single year. And like I said, I don't really remember church. I don't really remember what it was like being in church. I just don't have a ton of really highlight memories. So my life up until the age of 13 was very different. So it's almost like segmented because that whole time from like my childhood all the way up to that point just felt like a freaking grind. It felt hard. In that time, one of those times before we moved to Arizona, that's when my mom said we should drive off the cliff. And I hate to bring it up super nonchalantly, but that was a real moment. And I think she was dead serious. And I think that it hurts for me to look back and see that that was the adult that I had in my life. You don't you don't do that. You don't ever say that. And you don't ever put your kids in a position to decide if they want to live or die. And Tylee was 2 years old, like this was a long time ago, but that stuck with me for the rest of my life because if I would have said yes, if I would have been the deciding factor. So, like, you have to understand what that means. If I would have been on board, I don't think there would have been any thought of not doing it. I think we would have done it if I was on board. And I think that's what's scary. That's not my responsibility. And that was not ever something that I should have ever had to even be told. And that should have never been something Tylee should ever have been told to fear for your life on that moment. Um, and I think that those are defining moments of my life. Those are things that shaped me into the person I am, because when those type of things happen to you, they mess you up. You know what I mean? They mess you up. And we all have that. We all go through hard things. And those were some of the bigger moments that were highlighted for me. But like my family dynamic, there just didn't really feel like there was a lot of dynamic. Tylee, I think, was starting to go visit her dad, and I felt like I was the lonely kid, you know. She'd be gone when I had stepbrothers, they had their parents, so they would leave, so I'd be a lonely kid again. And um, the hard part for me wasn't just the loneliness, but it was all the emotions. You know what I mean? Like I am an emotional person, very emotional person, and I have a lot of whatever you want to call them, big feelings. I feel like I'm talking to Riley, but big feelings. And I felt like the dynamic of where my mom was at, she just wasn't able to be the parent. She was more like your friend. And when you're a kid, you don't need a friend. You don't need a bestie. You need someone who is guiding and taking care of things. And I didn't have that, you know. But I lived with this idea that I had to please her. I had to be strong for her, be strong for my family, protect my sister from my stepdad. And it just was horrible. Um, my mom met Charles when I was almost 10 years old. And he came into my life, and I was that kid that's like, don't come near my mom. Like, I was so skeptical of anybody ever coming back into our lives. I did not give him a chance the very first couple times. I'm 9 years old. I had my guards up. I'm like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not having another dad. It's not my dad. Like, I'm not doing this in my life. But he came in, and he was just genuine with us. He showed my mom that he cared. One of the sweetest things he ever did is when we moved out of our house, there was a lot of pettiness going on. So I guess we had literally been given from our house that we moved out from Tylee's dad. He gave us three plates, 3 forks, 3 knives, 3 spoons. He gave us 3 of everything because there was 3 of us. It was very genuinely petty from what I remember. I remember us having almost nothing because we had left the house in the middle of the day, and that's what happened in their divorce. I don't know. I don't know much about it, to be honest with you. I don't know. But I remember the emotional toll is what I was being given, and I was being talked about all these hard things going on. And I think at some point you just block it out because I'm just this kid trying to live life. But but that's what Tylee's dad gave us, is 3 of everything. So Charles knew that we had nothing really in our house, and my mom had tried to be building that up. And so Charles went to Costco and brought a bunch of stuff to our house and like left like a counter, just filled the counter with everything, like appliances, and like he just showed that he was going to take care of us, and he just had that love for us. And so that was like the biggest thing ever, because he just showed that he was like, there's just that almost like a safety net there, like, okay, somebody wants to try to take care of him. Like for me, it was like someone wants to try to take care of my mom. He seems nice. Like that's kind of like when it was starting to soften up. Um, but yeah, I mean, once they got married, we had a bigger family, but there was a lot of drama in our own family. Um, Not things I'm really going to get into right now, but a lot of bullcrap, a lot of accusations that are absolutely horrid and sick, and a bunch of adults using children as pawns of their selfish games because they're petty and mad at each other. And we had accusations thrown at us as kids for doing nothing. And that stuff shaped me into a different person too, because it was horrible to be to hear from your parents that people think you're doing stuff to their kids, and it's sick. And having that thrown at you as a kid at 10, 11 years old, I'm like, what did I do to deserve this? What did my brothers do to deserve this? What did my sister do to deserve this? Like, what the hell what was going on? Why are we pawns in a bunch of adults games to blame each other or try to make the kids look bad? I don't know what the goal was, but they were throwing the kids under the bus with accusations, and it was sick. And that's the crap we had to deal with. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. It's a bunch of drama, but another really defining moment. But one thing I can tell you is I don't remember having anybody to go to. I couldn't go to my mom and really tell her how I felt. I just feel like I was always absorbing everything. And I remember early on actually trying to figure out a way to take my life, and I just didn't know how to do it. I remember I was 12 and I wanted to, and sorry if this is heavy, but I'm just going to tell you guys the truth. I wanted to. I was done. My mom had been talking at that point now about the end of the world. My mom had told me that she was going to pass soon. She told me that she only had a little bit of time left. She told me that she had been told specifically how much time she had left, and like I needed to start preparing for her not being around. And now I'm already alone. Now I'm going to be even more alone without my mom there. My sister's going back and forth. My stepbrothers are going back and forth. So I'm basically in the house most of the time alone. And that's just what it was. And it sucked. Freaking sucked. And I just didn't have anybody to turn to. And I couldn't go to somebody and emotionally put my baggage on them. I couldn't tell them what I was going through. And I couldn't really have that. I didn't have that place emotionally to be safe. My grandparents were the most stable people to me. They were the ones that I felt the safest with. When I was at their house, things felt better and I felt safe. Um, Obviously, I don't want you guys to think that we never had fun. Um, Once Charles came into our life, we started going on vacations, we started doing things that, we hadn't really done. My mom had made pretty decent money. I mean, it was just us and she did good with hair, I guess. Did good with hair. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but she like I don't think we were ever struggling from what I remember a lot financially. So really the problems were things that are just emotional and court stuff going on and constant stuff that just is it's just different. I just can't really put it into words. Like, and I'll be honest with you, it's going to take probably years to even remember a lot of the little things that were going on at that time. Um, but I remember just the loneliness always. And I remember at that point, it felt like it was just me, our family, and my grandparents. And I remember when it was time for us to move to Arizona. And I remember thinking that I was upset again because we're moving, we're going different states. I did have two friends, one best friend that I'd had that I met when I was younger. We went to middle school and elementary together at different times from moving back and forth. And so he was in my middle school and I had just came back. So in sixth grade, I'm going to school. We go up on a vacation, and on the vacation, my mom says, and at winter break, we're moving to Arizona. So we moved to Arizona, just me, Tylee, and her. And then 6 months later, we moved back. So that's how that was. So then in seventh grade, I was back with my friends, back at my school, and I was happy. I wanted to play football. I was not very good. Very scared of getting tackled, very scared of hitting someone. Just soft. So, but I loved football. And then When we moved to Arizona, that was just a big deal because we were leaving everything we really knew and we were moving again. So that was really hard. When we got here to Arizona, I was really upset. Um, didn't know how to feel and was used to being alone at this point. Um, but honestly, moving here was ended up being one of the biggest blessings of my life. Once we found our tiny little school that we went to, Tylee and I, my mom wanted a school for Tylee and I to go to, that was a K through 12. And I never heard of that. I didn't even know that existed. I always knew school went up to like first grade to fifth, sixth through eighth, and then high school. So when I heard that, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. But we go to this school and it's super tiny. And I think that at first the idea was to just have it convenience for me and her to be at the same school every day to get picked up and dropped off. But I ended up meeting a bunch of my really good friends, and my life was changing, fast because we stayed in the same house for I think almost 6 years. I went and had my friends. Like I built my life in Arizona. I met Kelsey at that school, so a lot of my life, big things of my life happened um, because of that school. So I'm very grateful for that. Um, but all this time, I when I became a teenager, I felt like that's when I became more of the golden child. And what I mean is that once I had my growth spurt, I got really athletic really fast. I started being like the fastest kid on my football team, fastest kid on my basketball team. Like I just started being athletically gifted, whatever you want to call it. And I was really into it. I was really into sports. Is when I felt like I was starting to be praised for all my athletic endeavors from my mom. So her big thing was taking credit for my accomplishments. And it's one thing to say like, yeah, I'm your parent. I'm so proud of you. She was like, I taught you to do that. I'm like, no, you did not. I'm the one going out there watching YouTube videos. I'm the one that's doing the work to get better at the sport. I'm the one that's doing this. But we had this complex of her starting to take credit for my accomplishments. And her and I relationship did change. I stopped. I don't know. I always did have an underlying wanting to make everybody proud of me. I grew up with that sense. During this whole time, like I said, up until we moved to Arizona, Tylee was going through a lot. And, we weren't on the same page anymore. Like I was becoming a teenager. I was not nice. I was more moody. And at that point, I was so isolated. I just like to be on my own thing. I like to be downstairs, and we had a basement that I that I lived in the basement. Like we had a 3-story house, and I kind of wanted to do my own thing, and I didn't like anybody. I was just uh, obviously angry teenager, and I just turned my life to my friends, to sports, and I just didn't really pay attention too much to everything else. I just felt like I had my own life, and that's all I wanted. At 13 years old, I started thinking what I could do to get ready to be on track to start my own life. Like that's just where my mind was. And I realized that thought at first I thought that thought process was, just so selfish. And now I realize that was like my coping mechanism because I already felt so alone. I wanted to be self-efficient and I just wanted to I think part of me wanted to just move out at 13 and just like start my own everything and be alone. And um, I thought I knew it all. I thought I was that guy. So, whatever. I started, having a lot of attention from my friends and, just started my own life. So during that time, I think that I was just really driven on trying to figure out what I was going to do. I wanted to play football in the NFL. I wanted to play basketball in the NBA, just dreams, all your athletic dreams, all those things like that. Um, I remember though when the turn happened for me, after all the drama, Arizona was the soft spot. We had some peace. Obviously, there's things that happened. One of the things that I think I was talking to Kelsey about this, is one of the weird things that I forgot that even happened is me and Alex got into an actual fight, a fist fight. I was 13 at the time. I'd had my growth spurt, so I was already like 6'1", but I was skinny, and we were at the house, and I realized that there's some crazy things that happen that like just don't happen. Like, I am a grown man. I would never fight a 13-year-old kid. I don't understand how that's even a thought. I don't remember what happened exactly, but I know I was probably popping off at the mouth a little bit. And then it went from immediate that conversation to him tackling me. He was, he's a bigger guy. He was a lot heavier than me. And I was probably like 130 pounds because I was really skinny. I completely had eating disorder of my own. That is not something we'll get into right now, but I like completely stopped eating because I was obsessed with being ripped, and I thought that not eating was the answer. That's not for tonight. But I was a really skinny, tall teenager. But we got in a big fight, and I don't remember how we didn't punch each other, but he was willing to get to that point with me at that age, and I totally forgot that that happened. And that's just one of those things that you forget that definitely is like a bigger moment in your life, is fighting a family member like that, like getting into an actual fight with your own uncle. So that was a really weird moment. But during this time, I was definitely focused on myself. I remember once I got to, 18 years old, um, I had moved, I had stopped going to school, got my GED and tried to go into the military. That was my goal. And I was going to go into the Navy, and then I was going to be a Marine. That was my goal because I just felt like I needed to have a purpose. And I guess now that I'm realizing why I was doing that, now it's like questioning, what was my thought process? Why was I trying to get out of my house all the time? Like, I'd moved um, out at 17 flat. I moved multiple times. I moved in with multiple different family members all over the place. Like, I left my house multiple times just ready to get out. And then I feel like I would have a failure, if you want to call it that, a failure of not succeeding at something. And then I'd come back to my parents' house. So I was back and forth. So during this time, I'm checked out of really what's going on. My parents ended up telling me they're moving to Hawaii. And oh, I forgot about JJ. How in the world did I forget about JJ? That's right at that time, actually. So no, it's not. They came to me and told me that they were going to adopt JJ when I was almost 18. And I remember telling my mom, I don't think this is a good idea. I think a part of me, number one, was mad at her as a parent. So I did not want her to have another child. But a big part of me just felt like it didn't make sense to me why they would adopt a child when all of us are about to be grown. And I was really mad. Honestly, I was mad because I just felt like, what are you guys doing? Why are you having another kid? It just didn't make any sense to me. Again, 17-year-old, rude idiot. Right after they got JJ, I fell in love with him instantly. Tylee fell in love with him. And it was like, I couldn't even imagine him not being a part of our lives. And we just had this little baby who brought so much joy. And I remember not too long after we had JJ, they were like, okay, well, we feel like we're supposed to move to Hawaii. I'm like, oh, that's pretty convenient that God wants you to move to Hawaii. Really convenient, really good timing, really good place to conveniently end up. So they said they both felt that way. It is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and try to debunk all of it, but they said they felt like they were supposed to be there. So they told me they're moving to Kauai. I know they'd love being in Kauai. They felt called to go there. Again, like I said, I'm trying to live my own life, figure things out. I didn't initially even go with them. I ended up staying at my grandparents again, trying to immediately go back into the military. But at that point, I had tried to figure out what I wanted to do, and I was just all over the place. I was a mess. And so they said they're going to go. And so I actually said, okay, you know what? I'm going to, so actually how this story happened, how I ended up going on a mission is very interesting. I ended up going on my mission, LDS mission, because I was right at around 18. The bishop calls me to come to his office and have a conversation. And, at this point, I'd been in that ward forever. I had never talked. Now, again, I'm not a silent person. I've only done people who have ever been around me where I've been silent. There's whatever reason I just didn't talk. That's not me. You guys know I'm on this live. I've been talking nonstop for 40 minutes. Um, but my mom at this point was all over the place as far as her support. I think I just told her I was just a big thinker, and I just knew I wanted to do something good with my life, and she just was kind of all over the place in support of what I wanted to do. So she was supportive in that way. Um, but she wasn't there for me, but she was supportive of my ideas. So I think she just kind of deferred to my judgment. Not the greatest idea at 17, 18 years old to defer to your young teenager's judgment. They did not make very great decisions. So anyway, having that conversation with her about what I wanted to do, the bishop calls me into his office, and Kelsey's popping the frick off. So I go talk to the bishop, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going on this mission. There's no way. I've done too many bad things. I'm not worthy. I can't go on a mission. It's not going to happen. They're not going to call me. The bishop is asking me all these questions about everything I've done as a teenager, and I'm not going to talk about the blacklist, but I mean, I told him what had happened as a teenager and all the bad things I'd done, and I'm like, there's no way. I'm out. And so I left the office, and a couple days later, he texts me a couple more times asking me different questions. I'm assuming I'm not going. So at this point, I'm like trying to make these life decisions. Like at that age, you're trying to make life decisions. Now, at the same time, my mom is way more fixated on the end of the world. This is just the constant messaging of our lives. We're watching the movies, we're watching all the stuff that is about it. Like she has that obsession. It's part of her spiritual life, but she's also like looking like she's becoming more spiritually enlightened. And what I mean by that is that she seems to be more integral with her, or what's the word? Not integral. She's more she's just integrating, like faith had started to become everything for her. Like it was all she talked about. She started wanting to go to the temple on Oahu all the time. So you have to get on a plane to do that. And well, I mean, I guess that's right as we moved to Hawaii, but right before we moved to Hawaii, I talked to the bishop and thought I'm not going. Finally, they call me and they say, you're going to go. So my parents are moving, and I don't really know what to do. I just have all this time to wait until I'm ready to go. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just go with them, leave from there. So we go to Hawaii, and I'll be honest with you, like that was a really good time for our family. When we moved there, when we first got there, it was a culture shock. There's like nothing going on out there. Coming from Arizona to Hawaii is big change if you've ever been to Kauai. It's very, very different. It's just an island. It's not like the same as Oahu or other places, but it's the most beautiful place, right? But we moved there. That's when I feel like Tylee and JJ both also got time to be more kids. I felt like they just had the space. They had the space to be kids. They had the space to live their lives. And for me, I'm thinking I'm going to go on a mission. So I'm all in on that, trying to read my scriptures every day. I never feel worthy. I never feel good. I just never feel like I'm good enough to go. And so I finally end up going, finally leave that night. You have to take a night flight. I show up in Utah and nervous and all that stuff. And I just ready to leave. Honestly, like right off the bat, I got to Utah. They drove me to the missionary training center, and I was like, bro, I'm done. I'm out. I don't want to be here. I'm not worthy to be here. Just like it was not fun, and I was ready to leave instantly. I remember telling everybody around me, like having emotional breakdowns. I'm like, bro, I just don't want. I don't think I should be here. I don't feel good enough to be here. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm reflecting on all the emotional and spiritual craziness that I was putting myself through. I was in torment, and it's because of a lot of the ways of how I grew up and a lot of the religious views that I was being given. You know what I mean? Like you can't ever be perfectly worthy for anything. So to sit there and think that was just debilitating to me. But where I'm there for a couple weeks, so you're supposed to be there for two weeks. bro, it was the worst experience. Like I was ready to leave. You have to walk around with a companion 24/7. My guy, not talking crap about him if he's watching, but he obviously also didn't want to be there. So I feel like that was hard because the fact that he didn't want to be there and I didn't want to be there did not help. And he just really dragged his feet on everything. So I finally make it out. They convinced me. They kept convincing me to stay. Everybody's like, no, don't go home. Don't leave. And again, there's this fear. There's this fear that you're not if you go home, you're messing up your life. And just couldn't I couldn't deal with that. I tried so hard for so long to just be a good kid. I wanted to be a good kid. I wanted to please people. I wanted to please my family. I wanted my family to be proud of me. I wanted them to have a son that did good things. That was I had this like I guess innate need to be worth it. I felt like I had to do something big because I needed to prove that I wasn't a screw up. I had to prove that I wasn't this scared little kid, and I had a horrible religious view too. And I felt like maybe I was trying to prove something to God, and it's just like that's just not how it is. It's not how it is. You shouldn't have to prove yourself all the time. So after I left, or after I went on my mission, I actually ended up in Nampa, Idaho, of all places on the planet Earth. I ended up in Nampa, Idaho. And when I tell you that I wanted to leave, instantly I did. I did not want to be there. And I'm telling you, I wanted out so fast. And at one point, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I was ready. I was like, bro, I do not care. I have my bag. I will walk with my suitcases full of my clothes and I will freaking leave. I was like at the point, I'm like, I'm going to take my suitcases and walk down the street. I'm going to take my name tag off and I'm going to leave and I'm going to figure out a way to get out of here. I was done. And a lot of that was that religious view that I had coming in that I wasn't worthy. And a lot of that was because I was like, frick this, man. I don't want to be here. I don't like it. I didn't like it. And that was debilitating because I already was there. So I was like, man, I'm stuck here for 2 years and blah, blah, blah. So finally, I told the mission president, I said, look, I can't do this. I'm done. I'm out. I need to go home. And I remember coming home, bro, that was probably one of the lowest points in my life. I thought I failed God. I thought I had such a religious mind. Like, this is how I thought. I got home and I'm like, so I just screwed up my future. I just disappointed and ruined God's plan for my life. I am not going to be able to help the people I was meant to help. I can't marry the right person now. Like I literally like it was over for me. That was it. That's how religious my mindset was. That's how it felt. And when I got back, I'm gonna say this about the mission president. It is what it is. When I got back, the state president that I talked to when I left, he was all up. He was so happy. He was sending me out with freaking lays and everything. Bro, when I got back, that dude was so not having it with me. So I get back like 8 weeks later, and he's like, well, a lot of people start smoking and they start hooking up with girls and they start doing all this stuff right as they get back and all this stuff. And I'm like, so you just see me as a failure. Like, to you, I have failed and I already feel that way. And now here you are telling me, yeah, that's how it's going to go. Now you're going to end up on the wrong path. And it's like, bro, I just don't understand how this is not what I need right now. I was at the point, like, I don't know how I held my tongue with him, but I would have probably cussed him out. I'm not going to lie to you, because I was angry. I was already angry. I was so mad at myself. And then I felt like I disappointed everybody in the world. So after I get back, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And I'm trying to, and again, at this point, you have to understand there's kind of this grace period. JJ has made a ton of progress. He is doing so good. Like, I don't think I could ever explain, if anybody knows what it's like to have a family member with autism, and this just a specific part of autism, but like JJ was nonverbal till he was about almost 3. He did not even barely make eye contact. He was very dark. His eyes darted. He couldn't really like there. The one thing I had with JJ is that I could play with him. We played like crazy. We did WWE. He knew what it was. Like we were gonna wrestle, we were gonna run, we were gonna do everything together. And during that time, like there was just a grace period in life. And what I mean by that is so like there was these my life was so up and down that that part felt smoother because my family didn't have to go through court. My family was just able to somewhat be normal. Life was more normal than usual. And it just felt they didn't have a drama going on in their life. That's what I mean by normal. But again, my mom is getting more and more religious over time, and I'm feeling like I am the biggest screw up in the world, and that's just how I felt. I couldn't change that if I wanted to. That's just how I felt at the time, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I felt selfish because all I wanted to do was play basketball. That was my only thing on my mind, and I was like, I'm just gonna figure out a way to do this. I wanted to play football as well, so I started emailing coaches, and I started going into every mode I could. I was the most persistent person. I was finding emails for coaches on every website. I was calling coaches. I did not care. I was trying to visit the people around me. Um, my my good friend was playing at University of Hawaii, so he helped me come over there and just work out with them. Um, I mean, it wasn't anything crazy official, but like I just that was like my next goal. I'm like, you know what? Frick everything else. I'm gonna try to do the one thing that I want to do, which is sports. I'm gonna try to do what I think I'm good at and play sports. And that's just where I was at. Um, During this time though, you know, we're in Hawaii. So it's just us, what, that's 4, 5? Just us 5. And really it has just been the core because again, I'm the bouncer. I'm the one that's going and moving out and moving back and all this stuff all over the place all the time. And that's the one thing that I like I said, the one thing I did have was my family was able to provide the opportunity for me to try to figure things out on my own. So I had moved um, away from my parents multiple times and came back. And so I had enough grace because of my dad that I was able to actually do those things in a sense that he would take care of and he always took care of me that way. He always took care of all those things and he really was there in that way. He was a real provider and that's not all he was, but that was like the opportunity I had as a child and as a young man to kind of learn and grow on my own and kind of stumble and fail. So I'm moving in and out, but during that time, I'm not as tuned into my family. I'm laser focused on trying to do things. And there's also this thing with being growing up in the LDS church that you feel like you have to get married. Like once you hit like I don't know, 20, 21, your biological clock is gone. Like you gotta start procreating. You really got to get on it. So there's this pressure for me. I mean, obviously I wanted to be married for the right reason. I wanted a family. Like those were all righteous desires of my heart. But um, it is what it is. Like I felt pressure to get married. I felt pressure to try to be everything all at once. And there's a lot of pressure to get married. And guess what? I'm just going to say this right now. I don't care what you believe. Do not pressure yourself to get married. That's not something you put pressure on. God doesn't pressure you in that way. You know what I mean? Like it's not supposed to be pressure. You're not supposed to just do it because everybody else is doing it. You don't just get married and start having kids because that's what people do. No, you just slow down, say a prayer, chill out, and get married when you're ready to get married and pray about that. So that's just not the move. Okay. But during that time, finally I was able to, by the grace of God, play basketball and I was able to be a part of that and finally go for my dream. Um, Meeting Kelsey was definitely a derailing of that thing and I'm not blaming her. That's a good thing. Once I met her, she became my life. And the hard part about this is once I left Hawaii, they were still there for a while. My family finally moves back and they move back to Arizona. So now all of my family's together again, extended family, all this stuff. And everybody's kumbayaing like it's fun because, it's been a while since we all been in the same place. So finally, when I get back from school, I start dating Kelsey. We start our own life and how am I supposed to know? This is one thing I'm going to talk to you guys at the end of this video about, but like, how am I supposed to know this is the last basically 2 years that I get to have with my family? This is it. Like 2017, 2018, this is it. So I would never know that. But I did have some great moments with Kelsey. We She's the one that helped me start seeing things very differently because she came from a completely different family. All this other stuff, she came from a completely different religion. She was a Christian. I was LDS. Some people don't think that that's different, but it is. There's a lot of differences in that way. And really what happened is like she started to open my eyes to things, but obviously I was resistant. I was resistant to change. I didn't like it. I didn't like that there was so much change and it felt like we were butting heads. And obviously, we're not going to get into all the crazy things that happen when you're a young couple, but she started to help me separate from where I was. And I think that's usually what happens in marriages. You start to see how things work outside of your own family dynamic. And so she was giving me that perspective from an early point. And once we decided we wanted to get married, which let's just address this right now. If I need to go find the USB, I will, because we've had this misconception. This is its whole own thing. But we talked about this before in another live. The whole misconception about Tylee not being at our wedding still pisses me off to this day. Tylee was at our wedding. I don't understand what is there not to understand. She was there. We have pictures of her there. There's a bunch of people who go on the internet who want to talk like they were there. If you weren't there, then what are you talking about, bro? Tylee was at our wedding. She's my little sister. She was supposed to be a bridesmaid. When we went to the venue we were originally going to do our wedding, we went to the venue that we were originally going to do. So my parents were moving again for the billionth time. Before they moved, we found this venue. Tylee had a literal panic attack. She was supposed to be a bridesmaid. When we went to the venue and she had a panic attack, we wanted nothing more than for her to be comfortable at our wedding. So we said, Tylee, you don't have to do this. You don't have to be a bridesmaid. If it's too much pressure, we don't want you to be in pressure. We don't want you out here having a panic attack on our wedding day. We want you to be comfortable. You don't have to put pressure on yourself to do this. That simple. Then my parents moved into a different house. And when they moved into that house, we actually changed everything and moved our venue to that house because that house could house the wedding in the backyard. So that's what happened. Now, when we did that, for whoever's idea this was, I don't know who did this. I don't know where the blame goes. Okay. But I'm not going to get mad about it again. It's just what happened. Tylee left the morning or night before our wedding to go on some trip with her friend. I'm not sure what happened, but she wasn't there when it was time for our pictures. Now you have to understand, this had no control for me or Kelsey. We are supposed to get married. We are focused on getting married. Our family's all there. Our friends are there. We're getting ready and it's time. The photographer's there. She had already been booked for weeks. We all knew what time it was supposed to be. And if you want the honest truth, my opinion is it felt like there was a lot of sabotage going on behind the scenes. It felt like my mom was angry about my marriage with Kelsey. We weren't getting married in the temple. We weren't doing the LDS thing. We were doing it in the backyard. We were doing it a different way. And my mom had resentment. And that's just what it is. There was other things that happened. A lot of drama that was just unnecessary and had no place being at our wedding, but it was, and we had to deal with it. Now, that's the kind of crap we were having to deal with. But I did not notice this stuff until later. I didn't understand. I didn't see it the way I saw it until I actually started to go back and look at my life, and especially through therapy too, realizing how different things were. But Tylee did not get to be in our pictures. And that always upset me. And it always will, because she was supposed to be there and she ended up showing up not too long after that. And it just sucks. It just really, really sucks. But the reality is I'm not even going to deal with that anymore. If there's all these weird rumors and stuff that happens with situations like this, I don't know why that's one of them, but Tylee 1000% was at our wedding. And I don't even know why this is a subject for, I guess YouTube channels have talked about this. They're trying to create drama. Is it not dramatic enough? Is there not enough drama? We have to make up more stuff. Some people need that fix, I guess. I don't know. You need to get a life, brother. But anyway, let's get back to the happier notes. Tylee was at the wedding. My family was at the wedding. And, that was the high point for me. I got to go be with my wife. We wanted to start a family. We were happy. And we had about a year of that. So, and in that year, it's hard, and that's not obviously a conversation really that going into that. But the hardest part about, so hold on, let me answer this before I get into it. The pictures that we took were before the ceremony, and they were scheduled, and everybody knew the schedule, and Tylee was not there, and they actually left to go pick her up. So people kept leaving. We talked about this on another live. There was a whole hair situation with Kelsey. That's not my story, so I'll let her tell that if she ever wants to on this channel or in her own way. But there's a lot of situations going on our wedding day that were dramatic, that were unnecessary drama, and it just pissed. I'm done. I'm so done with that. It's so annoying, and I don't know why. It couldn't have just been normal. But it seemed that people were mad because there's a lot of stigma about not getting married in the temple for LDS families, and we did not get married in the temple. I don't know why it freaking matters, but it did to them. And I think there was just, I don't know, animosity, whatever the word is. But I would never sabotage my child's wedding because they didn't do the way I wanted to. I don't give a frick if my kids want to get married on a helicopter. I'll get up on the helicopter, whatever. It's their wedding. Anyway, back to the point. Having our wedding and that time was great. I had a lot of good moments. The hard part for me is that Tylee and I started to get a lot closer as the older she got and the older I got. Me and Tylee were, I think, separated by such a gap, an age gap for so long. And then as we were in Arizona, Kelsey and I were being mentored. And so I wanted to mentor Tylee. Now, I think it was a righteous desire, but obviously I'm not a mentor. And I wish I would have done a billion times better job. I always could do better. And I wish I would have done a better job with her. I wish I would have just been more supportive of her, but I was trying to help her. Kelsey was trying to help her. We're just trying to be there for her. We wanted to help people. And so we started mentoring her, and it was a big deal because that was like something that meant a lot to me because she was opening up to us. She was telling us things that were happening in her life, and I was trying to give her the advice. Kelsey was trying to give her advice. We were trying to just be there for her and help her. And during this time, JJ's growing up. He finally got into his school at Lawrence Institute, and he was just thriving. He was having so much fun. It felt like our lives were just fun again. It felt like we were just focused on what was the fun thing we were going to do that day. And that was such a big deal because our lives had been hard. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing. I've talked to you guys about this before as well. I mean, having the Disneyland life can be really fun, but at the same time, if it's always a Band-Aid on the Titanic's hull and the ship is going to sink, but you're just constantly putting a little bit of pressure back and then eventually it floods back. I mean, you're really just in a perpetual cycle and it's not going to get better. But we had the Disneyland life. We started going to Disneyland literally all the time and then just kind of had a fun firework kind of life. And it felt like my mom was more of a best friend. And I don't know how Tylee felt, but I know Tylee desperately also craved my mom. She craved her love. She craved her acceptance. And Tylee was the scapegoat. And Tylee was looked at as the problem child. And she was the one that was too emotional. And she was the screamer. And she was the one that got very upset and had really big feelings and just really didn't know how to handle her feelings. But she didn't have somebody come over there and rub her back and be there for her. She had a lot of judgment and a lot of push off. And I think that that's the problem. She didn't have the acceptance and the understanding of the fact that she was going through. And the hardest part was on top of that, she was having issues with her pancreatitis. I know that actually did happen in her life. I think some people have tried to ask that question. Tylee did have pancreatitis. That was real, but I don't know as she got older what that situation was. And I'm not going to speak on that because I don't know, but she was going to the hospital for it. I just don't know if it was for the attention and the love that she got from when she was there, or if she was really flaring up constantly. I don't know. I can't speculate on that. And I don't want to, because I love her and I want to protect her, but it was hard. It was hard to watch. And now realizing really what she needed, I felt like I wish I could have been that for her. But I can't change what I can't change. JJ just really was him. He was just a fun kid. He just had fun. He was a genius. He was hilarious. He was, he just lived his life. But I feel like for Tylee, she tried so hard, so many times to be something better. She tried, I think she had the same thing. She just wanted to be recognized. And the problem that I have is that Tylee and I started to get really close um, after that. And I really only got a couple of months, a really good couple, maybe 6, 8 months of really like talking with Tylee, getting to know her. And I mean that as like as she got older, we started to talk about the past. We started kind of digging up stuff. And I remember I was starting to dig up my mom because I was starting to realize like, hey, that was effed up. Like we would start doing that. Tylee had a dark humor. She would make fun of the darker things, and that's just how she coped. And so I can have I don't really have dark humor. I don't really have that, but I mean, I obviously try to make light of things. I try to enjoy things or laugh, but I don't really have like a situational laughing about it. It's just not my style, but that's how she coped. And we would talk about things and stuff just started to like, we were starting to, if you have siblings later on in your life, you ever get to that point, sometimes you just start talking and conversing about your childhoods. And her childhood was way different. I think her childhood in a lot of different ways was harder than mine because she had a lot of other things to deal with that I never had to deal with. I never had to deal with two parents and custody battles and all this back and forth. I never had to deal with pancreatitis. I never had to deal with she moved just as much as I did, only she was younger. She had to watch things happen. I just can't, I don't know. I don't know what her life was like, but she went through it and she never deserved it. But I think the hardest part too is for me personally, I always felt this unnecessary burden to be everything for everybody in my family. It just wasn't realistic, and you can't be that for everybody. And after Kelsey and I got married, we started having time with my entire family, and then guess what, guys? It was it. It was over. We had about a year. The drama started in January 2019, and things just fell and crumbled into a place and snowballed into a place you could never even fathom it would go. And that was one thing I was sharing with my friends and some other people I was talking to is like, we really take for granted the things that are happening right now. We take these moments for granted. We take our families for granted a lot of times. And I'm not saying that this is to hurt your feelings or tell you that you're bad or anything. I do the same thing. I think we're so caught up in the day to day. We're so caught up in things, but we don't know if tomorrow's promised. We don't know if 20 minutes is promised. So I think the reason why I'm digging all of this up with you guys, why we're talking about this stuff, why we're talking about my life and my past is because I really hope that if you guys can understand one thing, once you realize and are coming to terms with what happened, there's a life in front of you and a life forward. And I think that the hardest part is you just have to come to a place of realizing really what things were. And you can't put a time tag on that, a timestamp on that. You can't tell yourself that you're going to know what's going on. I mean, could I've ever fathomed my mom going from talking about the end of the world to doing what she's doing now? No. Obviously, something very deep happened in her life, and she never felt fulfilled. She never felt the joy of her family around her. She always needed more. She needed more of a purpose. She needed to believe that something bigger was going to happen. She needed the cosmos to tell her she's a goddess. I don't know. But the point is that's how life can really present itself. It's like you're always looking for more, needing more. You're never satisfied with what you have. And I think that kind of stuff just ruins your life, your current life. My life now is starting to shape into realizing what I have in front of me. And I'm not going to lie, like having a baby, all this stuff, all the changes, it gets hard. And then sometimes I'm just like, oh, I just need a minute and I just want to go do this. And it's like realizing this time's never coming back. I'm never going to have this time with my family like this and have us all at this point with the same ages and the baby and all this stuff. Like you just get so caught up in your life. And I think that's the message I just want to share with you is like, yes, the past can be really tough. I know you guys have your own past, your own lives, and things are hard. But moving forward, you have to see that there is a life after this, and you have to be able to continue to say, my life is worth living and not give up. guys, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I wanted to give up so many times. I can't even tell. I couldn't count. I've been really on the edge. And I bring that up tonight because I just saw a statistic. I think there's already been a couple thousand suicides in 3 days. And I'm not trying to get too heavy on you tonight, but like this stuff is real. And I bring this up because we're having a very real conversation. And you get to make a choice in your life. You get to choose what you do and how you respond to this crap. And I'm not going to sit here and say I've responded perfectly or that I've been this strong person. I think people really look at me as a strong person. I'm I don't know. I don't feel that way, but I do believe that God is carrying me through and I believe that you guys are a support system for me. We're doing therapy right now. It's just what it is, but I'll just say that there's a lot of hardships in life and I feel like you have to be able to hone in on the good and have your anchors and be able to realize what it was. So I just feel strongly to share that with you too, because as heavy as tonight is, there's still other things going on in life. There's still good things that happen. And the best thing I can do and the best thing you can do is if you've lost someone, honor them in the best way you possibly can. Remember them for who they were and take the good lessons from your life and apply them to moving forward. And, sometimes life just has to come to a point of radical acceptance of what it is. Am I ever going to be able to understand where my mom is today and how my entire family's gone? No. Is it going to have another day or multiple days where I'm freaking down in the dumps like I feel like was today and just don't even know if I have the strength to keep going on? Yeah, it's going to happen. I'm going to have bad days. We're all going to have bad days. But the reality is you can't let other people or other situations in your life shape your life and let the past shape your future. It's not what you're on this earth to do, is constantly let the past ruin your life. You deserve a good future. And yeah, I just wanted to end with that because that's been on my mind today too. Is as hard as this stuff is to remember, as hard as it is to talk about this stuff, I just felt like I needed to get off my chest tonight. And I'm really grateful for you guys. Thank you guys for sitting here. I know I did not read chats tonight. I was in my own feelings tonight talking, but I do have a lot of love for you all. And it's not cliche. I recognize you guys are here and we're all going through hard stuff. Just know you're not alone. You don't have to do this life alone. And if you're in that pit today, just know you're not alone. That's it. That's all I want to let you know. All right. I'm going to try to answer some questions too. I know I went through a lot. I know I busted through, probably missed a lot of things too, but it's what it is. I saw one at left. Okay. Did Tylee ever express to you how crazy your mother was getting? No. Tylee and I realized when she started talking to Melanie Gibb how weird they were. And Tylee and I did not, from what I understand, I never got to hear the depths of what my mom was doing. She just tidbit everything. I've told you guys this before. She was very good at cultivating lies. And I don't know if cultivating is the right word, but she was very good at spinning webs of lies to each person exactly the way they needed to be lied to, if that makes sense. She knew who would accept what and this and that. Did Tylee know Annie Cushing? No. No. She did not. This is simple no. Yeah, that's a whole nother situation we will not get into because it's just not worth. It's literally not worth it. I don't think it's worth it. But no, she did not know her almost at all. So take that for what it is. Colby, do you think your mom will find help in prison? I would hope so. I would really hope so. I would hope that she wants to, for her own sake, try to get out of the hole. But I don't. All I can say is I leave that to God. That is only a God thing. I cannot help her. No one can help her. She has made that clear, and she has also made it very apparent that she does not want help. She does not want to be helped. She does not want advice. She does not want anybody there. She just wants to have it her way. And so that's when you can't do anything about it. But yeah, I hope she gets help for her own sake. But she's not going to change unless she wants to. And I don't see that happening in this life. I pray that it does. I do not have ill will for anybody. I don't care how bad they've hurt me. I don't care how bad it's been. I do not have ill will for them. And I mean them. I say Chad and my mom. I do not wish harm because that doesn't do anything. I think there's this popular idea that let me answer this real quick. Did Tylee ever talk to you about her feelings about Chad? No. We did not discuss Chad because I didn't know Chad existed. I don't know if Tylee did. But I forgot what I was saying. Sorry. I have ADHD probably. I'm gonna lose my train of thought. And that's not your fault. That's me. That's what it is. I forgot what I was saying. But yeah, it is what it is. Kelsey's laughing at me. She knows I can't read it and then keep my train of thought. What is something in your life that now brings you the greatest sense of joy? Honestly, my family. My family. Being able to be something for them matters the most to me. And then for my own personal joy as well, outside of loving them and wanting the best for them, is I really love doing this with you guys. I really hope it's helpful. I pray on everything that it's helpful. That's all I care about, is that if this is helpful to you guys. Faith. Do you fully forgive your mom? So let's talk about that real quick, because I've made multiple videos about this. I actually made a video years ago about this when I first did that. And I'm going to answer this one next. Okay, so I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me not lose my train of thought here. What forgiveness is stop drinking the poison. Drinking the poison, and what I mean by that is you stop going to that place with that person where they have that kind of hold on you. What I've done is try to, even though she cuts open the wound all the time, this is not something that is just, oh, I can just move on and whatever. Like at some point you kind of just let time do its thing. With her, she's in the media, she's doing this whole thing with her trial. And so I have to keep dealing with her hurt. The point is that the poison is, if I do not forgive her, if I'm looking for vengeance, I think that's what I was talking about earlier, looking for revenge. There's this idea, there's no satisfaction on the end of revenge. So what are you left with, right? If you're not going to go get revenge, if you're not going to go take vengeance out on a person, if you believe that the Bible is, which what it says is leave vengeance to God. But outside of that, if you don't believe in that, then the point is, even if you got revenge, would you really feel satisfied getting revenge? Is there a vengeful thing you can do? And the answer is no, because if I took out vengeance on them, I'd be the same type of person. There's no winning. So at the end of the day, you're left with, what do I do with this? And the poison is not letting it go. The best thing you can do, in my own opinion, is continually say, I'm not going to let this person and what they did destroy me. I'm going to let it go in a good sense, not just to forget it, but just, I'm not going to let them hurt me anymore. And I'm going to forgive them, and I'm going to give it up to God. That's what I would say. Hope that answered the question. Will you ever explain this to your kids? Eventually, yes. We'll have to. I've thought about that before. Two wrongs do not make a right. Exactly. Yeah, there's no winning in revenge. You ever see? Come on, guys. Star Wars. Hello. Vader kills Obi-Wan. I don't know if he felt any better. I don't know, because he's behind a mask. So it is what it is. Am I a nerd bringing up a Star Wars reference? Yeah, but it came to my mind first thing. That's what it is. But when I ever talk to the children about all of this, I don't know how it's going to go, but they're going to know. So it's part of their lives. It's part of the history of their family. And so, yeah, they will know eventually. But It's not something I'm really gonna force. It's gonna be more of bringing it up when it feels like the right time, just like you do with age appropriate things with your children. You bring it up when they're older at certain points in their time. That's what it is. Garrett, stop. I know I'm a nerd. It's fine. That's what it is. That's what it is what it is. Listen, I like the Star Wars because it's a war. Hello. They freaking fight with swords and they shoot the droids. Come on now. It's a war. I never understood that. It's like all the cool stuff that's war is nerdy to everybody. It's like, I'm not out here. I like the war. I like the strategy. Come on now. It's a war. It's dope. Come on. Come on, guys. Come on. Okay, hold on. Let me read this one. Do they see the photos of Tylee and JJ and ask about them? Where they are? Yes. So they know that Tylee and JJ are in heaven. They know that. They know. I mean, Ava's not old enough to really understand, but Riley is, and Riley's very curious, and she's very smart, and she asks a lot of questions. And with that being said, she asks the questions, and we just answer age appropriately. And I've told them that those are her aunt and her uncle that she never got to meet. Unfortunately, both of them saw Riley when she was a baby, maybe 2 or 3 times. And then that was it, ever. And I think Tylee only got to hold Riley. No, she probably held her a few times. Yeah. But it's not like Riley remembers that. So it's hard. It's hard for me because I'm the one that knows, and Kelsey knows what that was like. But yeah, they know who they are. It's just not something that they fully understand. But we've had pictures of them for so many times, like so many different pictures. I've had, we've had photo blinkies. We've had pictures everywhere. Like they know who they are. They still wear their little Tylee and JJ shirts to sleep sometimes. Like they know, they just don't, they know, but they don't understand probably fully. So that's what it is. But yeah, it was a heavy night, guys, but I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we did it because it was weighing on my mind. I know there's a lot of people, and a lot of people have a lot of questions. I understand that. I know that there's probably a lot of things that people would want to know more about. I guess over time, as I see the healing need to do so, I will. I told you guys before, I mean, this is all new to me. This is just the first really year, less than a year, that I've really dealt with this stuff. So you guys are watching this raw as it happens, but I always feel the need for us to share this stuff because I pray on everything it helps. I hope it's helpful to you guys, really, bottom of my heart. But I also like hanging out with you guys. So it's a lot easier to talk about this stuff when we just hang out. You guys can look at the cool setup. It's okay. We still love you. We're still here having fun. Dang, it's 9:08. Wow. It's my bedtime, guys. No wonder my eyes are starting to slowly close down. What was this? I don't know what that was. But I appreciate you guys. This is all different stuff for me. I still don't fully know how to deal with all this stuff. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm Kels. Here's the problem. See, we're watching The Office right now. I've watched it. Okay, you guys please don't roast me for this. I watched The Office literally because I was so depressed for so many different times. I've seen The Office probably 9 times fully through. Season 1 to end. Forgot if it's 9 seasons or 10 seasons, right? But she wants to watch The Office. We're in the bad part of The Office right now. It's the part without Michael Scott, and I'm just gonna be honest with you. Not the same. Don't at me. I do got to go to sleep. Or we got to play some Fortnite. Oh, no, I'm going to get in trouble. We might have to play some Fortnite. I don't know. We might have to do it. But anyway, I love you guys. Appreciate you. Have a great night. I'm going to go get some sleep. I said let's go get some sleep. Come on. I'm tired. But I love you guys. I'll keep you up to date on the community tab. Honestly, though, thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. It means a lot to me. And thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable. And thank you for supporting me in my hard part of my life and the hard stuff in my life. I do appreciate that. One thing I've told you guys though from the beginning is obviously this year we're going to be doing a lot of other things too. We'll be pivoting and I really want to share other things with you. So we'll be doing that as well. But anyway, I appreciate you. Love you. Have a great night. I guess I'm going to go watch The Office right now. All right. Love you.